In 1807, Napoleon Bonaparte was the most powerful man on earth. He had crushed Austria, humiliated Prussia, stared down the Tsar of Russia on a raft in the middle of a river until the man signed whatever was put in front of him. And then Napoleon was defeated. Not by a coalition, not by an army, by bunnies. Hundreds of fluffy, tame, deeply enthusiastic bunnies who chased the Emperor of France up onto his own carriage. And this, supposedly, actually happened. Let me back up. Our cast. First, Napoleon. Short, round-bellied, one hand permanently shoved into his waistcoat, bicorn hat worn sideways. Default expression of a man who has never once considered the possibility of losing. He has just had the best summer of his life. In July 1807, Napoleon signed the treaties of Tilsit with Tsar Alexander I of Russia. This was the high watermark of his entire career. France controlled most of Europe. Kings were sending him fruit baskets. He was, at this exact moment, the final boss of the continent. And when you are the final boss of the continent, you celebrate the only way nobility knew how. You go outside and shoot small animals. Hunting was the official sport of being important. King, emperor, or guy desperately hoping people would mistake him for one. You organized a hunt. Napoleon grew up middle class on Corsica and was extremely invested in looking like he belonged at the top. So, a grand imperial rabbit shoot, manly, aristocratic, easy. Enter our second character, Marshal Louis-Alexandre Berthier, chubby, fidgety, dressed in a uniform so heavily embroidered it could stop a musket ball, and constantly chewing on his own fingernails when nervous. Berthier was Napoleon's chief of staff and a genuine logistical genius. He could move 100,000 men across Europe and have every last one show up at the right field, on the right morning, in the right boots. Remember the nails. We are coming back to the nails. Napoleon turns to his nail-biting logistics genius and gives him a job. Throw me a rabbit hunt, a big one. Make the emperor look magnificent shooting tiny mammals. For Berthier, this is the easiest assignment of his career. This is not the Russian campaign, this is rabbits. You point, you shoot. The rabbit traditionally does the decent thing and dies. The man had organized the invasion of nations. He could organize bunnies. One problem: to have a rabbit hunt, you need rabbits. And you don't want 3 sad rabbits in a hedge. You want abundance. You want, on the signal, a glorious explosion of fleeing wildlife for the emperor to majestically blast. So, Berthier did what any good organizer does. He delegated. Go acquire rabbits, a lot of rabbits. Accounts of the number vary wildly. Some say hundreds, some 1,000, some as many as 3,000. We'll go with a horrifying amount of rabbits. Here's where it goes wrong. Catching that many wild rabbits is hard. Wild rabbits are fast, twitchy, and want nothing to do with you. So, Berthier's men took the shortcut. They bought tame ones, farm rabbits, by the cartload. This seems like the same thing. It is not the same thing. A wild rabbit, seeing a human, thinks, predator, flee, run for your life. A tame farm rabbit, seeing a human, thinks, oh, thank goodness the food guy is here, finally I'm starving. Every day of their lives, a person had walked up to their hutch and handed them lettuce. To these rabbits, an approaching human was the single greatest event of the day. The lettuce men. Berthier had assembled, without realizing it, several hundred starving animals trained from birth to sprint joyfully at the nearest person. The day arrives. A grand luncheon laid out in the field. Marshals in dress uniform. Beaters in position. And our hero, Napoleon, short, round-bellied, hand in his waistcoat, bicorn hat sideways, radiating the calm of a man who has personally redrawn the map of Europe, gun ready, confidence total. Berthier, chubby, embroidered, gently gnawing a fingernail, gives the signal. Release the rabbits. The cages open. And for one beautiful second it works. A wave of fluffy bodies pours onto the field, magnificent, imperial. The emperor raises his gun, then the rabbits turn around. Because every one of these little white and brown fluff balls looks across the field and sees a large group of humans. And in their tiny rabbit brains, one word fires: food. The lettuce men, all of the lettuce men, at once. The greatest feeding time in the history of rabbits. And they charge, not away from Napoleon. At Napoleon, hundreds of tame rabbits, abandoning all hunting decorum, bolted at the most powerful man on earth at full bunny speed, fully convinced he had the snacks. Napoleon, to his credit, did not panic immediately. He probably found it charming. Look at the little fellows. Then the little fellows reached him. They poured around his boots. They climbed his legs. They swarmed up his trousers, scrabbling at the Emperor of France with the determination of animals who have decided this man is holding out on them. Napoleon kicked. Too many. For every rabbit he flung aside, 3 more arrived, fluffy and furious and hungry. He swatted them with his riding crop. More rabbits. The man who outmaneuvered the Prussian army could not outmaneuver Lunch's most enthusiastic fans. And remember Berthier? He is now standing in a field, watching a tidal wave of bunnies bury the Emperor of France, and he is biting his nails clean off because he understands, with the clarity of a true professional, that he has personally ruined everything. The hunt collapsed. The marshals tried to help. Servants ran in flapping coats, waving whips, trying to scare the rabbits off. But these rabbits had never been scared of anything in their pampered lives. A whip, to a farm rabbit, is just an exciting new thing the food man is holding. Napoleon did the only sensible thing. He retreated. The conqueror of Europe broke for his carriage. He fled. And the rabbits pursued. And here is the detail that elevates this from funny to the rabbits were tactically superior. The swarm did not chase him in a clump. They divided. The rabbits split into 2 wings and outflanked the imperial carriage from both sides, cutting off his retreat. Which is, and I cannot stress this enough, a real military maneuver. Napoleon spent years teaching his marshals to flank the enemy on both wings. The rabbits did it for free. Several hundred farm animals executed a double envelopment on the greatest general of the age, and the objective was lettuce. Napoleon scrambled into the coach. They threw rabbits out by the armful. Bunnies were still leaping in through the windows as it pulled away, tossed back out as fast as they hopped in. The coachman whipped the horses and the carriage rattled off down the road at speed, pursued for a while by a determined, fluffy cavalry that genuinely could not understand why dinner was driving away. That was the hunt. The master of Europe, the future conqueror of Russia, driven from a field in his own country by a horde of tame rabbits who thought he owed them salad. No glorious shoot, just a carriage full of fur and a story his enemies would have paid a fortune to witness. We don't know exactly what Napoleon said. I'd love to tell you, but no reliable record survives. And I'm not going to invent imperial dialogue. We do know the source. This comes down to us mainly through later memoirs and historians like David Chandler, so treat it as a beloved but lightly legendary anecdote. Too good to fully verify, too good to throw away. But the lesson is real, and Berthier learned it the hard way. There is a difference between a wild rabbit and a tame one. The first runs from you, the second has been waiting its whole life for you to show up, and it has brought friends. Napoleon would go on to win and lose much bigger battles, Wagram, Borodino, Waterloo. But of all the forces that ever made him run, only one ever did it because it loved him too much. If your week has been dumber than getting flanked by your own lunch, subscribe to Historian Harry, where the real stories are always fluffier than they should be.